Hey there, Mama, and welcome back to the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast, episode number 239. I'm Emily McDermott, and I'm here beside you on this journey as we work together to declutter your home, head, and heart. I'm excited to bring back Dana K. White from A Slob Comes Clean. We are talking today about decluttering with kids. I am giving her some questions from my own experience as well as experiences with my clients. And we're also talking about her new children's book, Winnie's Pile of Pillows, which is geared towards children 4 through 8. And I know you are going to love this conversation. We talk about some of the concepts that you are probably familiar with, like the container concept, also the power of the 5-minute pickup, and how we can really end the power struggles with our kids when it comes to their belongings, cleaning up their rooms, etc. So if you're not familiar, Dana K. White is the creator of the No Mess Decluttering Method and, much to her own surprise, a decluttering expert. And she shares realistic home management strategies and a message of hope for the hopelessly messy in her books. So she has several books, as well as her YouTube channel and her podcast. All of those links will be in the show notes today. So without further ado, grab that notebook and pen and let's dive into today's conversation with Dana K. White. Hey Mama, are you tired of your cluttered home and mile-long to-do lists but are too overwhelmed to know where to start? Do you lack the time and motivation and don't think you'll ever conquer the clutter? You're in the right place. I'm Emily, wife, boy mom, and declutter coach who has overcome the overwhelm in my own life through decluttering and simplifying. I believe every mom deserves the peace that comes from a clutter-free home. Ready to get your life back? Let's declutter your home, head, and heart together. Well, hey, Dana. Welcome back to the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast. I am thrilled to chat with you again, so thanks for being here.
I'm so excited to be here again. This makes me happy, especially to talk about my children's book. Like, how
I
perfect is that?
know. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And so I get questions all the time about decluttering with kids, and I
Mhm.
kind of have my own recommendations, and your container concept is always like front and center with being able to have that kind of mindset and sort of having limits. We don't have just like unlimited stuff everywhere. And so I love the book that you have put out there, and I'm going to be kind of diving into some questions I get a lot from listeners and from community members. And then we're going to talk about the book and specifically like what age range it's for,
Yeah.
how people can get their hands on it, and all of those types of things. So, my first question is, I know that your kids are a bit older now,
Mhm.
but I'm curious if you struggled with them when they were young, as far as like the stuff that they owned or how much they owned, tidying, keeping their rooms quote unquote clean. And how did you kind of work with them? Were you able to help them make decluttering a habit? Like, how did it work in your own life?
Yes, I struggled big time. So, my story is that I was the messy one. Like, it wasn't that my kids were the problem and I was perfect and I was like, how do I fix them? Right? Like, I was the problem. But of course, as a mom, you feel all this responsibility to teach them to do better than I did. And so, yes, of course, absolutely, I struggled. When I first started what I call my deslobification process, they were 3, 5, and 7. So, really, in the beginning, it was just a story of decluttering and then decluttering again, and then decluttering again, and then decluttering again. I feel like the biggest transformational thing for their thought processes, what I observed was them seeing me declutter my stuff and let go of things that I once never would have let go of. Right. Like them seeing our home transform was more powerful in changing their thoughts about stuff than any of the times where I had said, let's go in and fix your room, even though my room and the living room and the kitchen and everything were a disaster. And so I think that observation, but then, I now have the strategies that I figured out the hard way in a process, like a 5-step process. But those same strategies were the same ones that I would use with them, right? Like guiding them through. And it was a mix for us. My kids loved it when I would declutter their room while they were gone. Like they thought that was the greatest thing ever to come home and they're like, Mom, you're so good at cleaning. And I'm like, you know, um, but, but I would say the most transformational for them and seeing them really change their relationship with stuff came from when we decluttered together in their room and guiding them through those decisions about, what can stay and what can go.
Yeah. Well, one of the kind of ways that I've used your container concept with my own
Mm-hmm.
kids is for their quote unquote treasure boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had the same size shoebox for the trinkety stuff that they get from every which way. And I kind of made it into a game called Love, Like, Maybe No, where we start with the loves and the likes. And now my now 8-year-old son came to me the other weekend. He's like, Mom, I want to play Love Like Maybe No, but for my whole room.
That's
And
awesome.
he's then coming to me because it's then he's seen that not only where we've done it together since he's been young, but he has seen, okay, yeah, Mom is bringing this for donation, or oh, someone is coming to pick this up for buy nothing. That's why this is on the porch. Or just like you said, being able to involve them in that process. Perhaps they know the kids that it might be going to, which I feel like that connection is helpful to foster that feeling of generosity. If they're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is going to my cousin or this is going to my neighbor. And so, but what about the kids that they're not like, oh, Mom, come declutter
Oh,
my
yeah.
room. And I was working with a family, and then they're like, oh, you're going to work with our 9-year-old today. And I'm like, okay, I can handle this. And every single scrap of paper, every single scrap of paper was important. It
Yeah.
was a note, it was a game, it was something. And so I felt a little like out of my element
Mm-hmm.
because here I am saying, oh, container rule, and oh, do you want to keep this? And is this important? And what do you do when every toy, every stuffy, every scrap of paper is something that they are saying to you is important, and perhaps they have the space in the room for it where they can still sleep and play and do
Yeah.
what they want to do? How do you approach a situation like that?
Well, first of all, the removal of is this important to you? Like taking that out, it gets to be important to them. And whether it's important or not, absolutely plays into it. Right. But instead, going at it from the perspective after you've gotten the trash out and the easy stuff and the obvious donations, like once those things are gone and we're down to, even if it is scraps of paper that I would say is trash, instead of having the conversation about why it's not trash, that is, and especially because their previous experience, and in most of these situations, it's between mother and child, right? Like
Mhm.
you were helping somebody who's not your child. But most of the time, when it's between mother and child, and in the past, you have had the conversation about whether or not this piece of paper is important. There is an expectation that decluttering equals arguing, right? That decluttering equals a power struggle. And I'm not saying it's like this intense, but that's what it means. It's decluttering with Mom is going to equal me having to explain and justify all of that. So that position at the beginning of the project really affects the whole thing. And so that's one of the reasons why those first 3 easy steps are so powerful in building the trust to get to the point where you're actually making hard decisions. So when you say, do you see any trash? And you're like, I can't believe they don't think that's trash. And then but you don't say that, right? Like not saying it. And they say, no, I don't see any trash. You say, oh, well, is that trash over there? No. Okay. Like that is the diffusing of what the expectation was of this time, right? But once you get to these things that are hard, then instead of having any like the justification, we take that out. And instead it is, okay, this piece of paper, where would you look for it first? And most likely they're going to start explaining why it's important. But you're like, oh no, I believe you, it's important. But where would you look for it first? Okay, I would look for it here. And then this space is going to be the container, right? And as the parent, you decide the container. You are the one saying, this is the size of the room. We got to have play space first, like helping, especially helping kids to see. And I know it's kind of a concept, but like, oh, nothing can be stored here because this is where you play. Like this is where things get pulled out, which is the whole thing that happens when, my kids would come home and their rooms had been decluttered and there was open floor space that hadn't been there for months before that,
Yep.
and they were all excited about playing. And so it's like really focusing in on this space is for playing. So it's not all available for holding things, but this here, okay, this piece of paper you would look for in this drawer. Okay, well, we let that be, and we actually take it there. And so many times that does reveal like, oh, it's not as important as I thought, but I was holding on to it because I thought you were going to tell me it's not important. Like I just wanted you to understand I like paper. But when it's time to go walk over there and put it away, then it's like, oh, well, actually, I don't want to do that. Like it's not worth that to me, right? But when it comes down to it, with as far as like they have the space, the function of the room is key, right? So there has to be the actual room to play where things are not stored. But the gauge is the 5-minute pickup. So the 5-minute pickup shows us that we are under our clutter threshold, because the container is what you declutter to first, right? Like, and you know the container concept, and if people are listening and they don't know what that is, but it's just basically like seeing space as the boundary and letting that help you make decisions. So you declutter to that first because there's nothing to argue. Like the size of the bucket is the size of the bucket, the size of the drawer is the size of the drawer. But if you are still unable on a regular day to get this space picked up and everything put away in its actual home in a 5-minute pickup, then there's too much stuff. There's more stuff than you can handle. And so as I'm decluttering with children and with anybody, but I like to talk about that as we're working, like, hey, this is our goal. This is what we're doing here. We want to get this to the point where on any regular day, you'll be able to get everything put away in 5 minutes. And that shifts something. It's like, oh, so our goal is not to get it done today and then we play until it's unplayable in here, which is exactly what my kids that's how we used to function when they were little, before I started figuring all this out. Instead, it's to be able to put things back. And then that also is the gauge that it encourages them to use those 5 minutes wisely, right? Because I'm reminding them, hey, if we can't get this out of, if we can't get this back the way it needs to be in 5 minutes, then we need to get rid of more stuff, because it's just more stuff than we can handle. So that's that gauge for the individual child. Does that answer your question at all?
It totally does. And what I really appreciate is that, the container concept is sort of the like physical boundary, but to use the boundary of time is just, I think, really genius, because I often talk about, yes, we have the container concept, which is important, but also our capacity. But when we think about our children's capacity, that is that when you say, okay, it's time to clean up, they don't become what I call wet noodles, where they suddenly like don't know how to function.
Which is exactly what's going to happen the first time you try it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But to say like, okay, we're going to see what we can clean up in 5 minutes. And if we can't clean up what we have out in 5 minutes, then that's too much. And we need to, kind of figure that out. So it's a really kind of easy, like, I don't know, like having that boundary of time is sort of that second level, because again, I was on this video call and the playroom is humongous and everything does have a place, but there's just like 100 places. And so the mom is saying, well, it's too much. And it's like, okay, so then the gauge is, can we clean it up? And if we can't clean it up, then it's too much, even if we have a designated space for everything.
Right. Because it's not realistic to clean up for 2 hours every day. Nobody wants to do that. I don't want to do that. Right. And it also, the clutter threshold. So that's what I call it. It's like this point at which I only have what I personally, with my personality, can easily keep under control. Like this is what's easy for me. This I can do in 5 minutes on a regular day. And mine is different from my mother's. My kids are different from mine. And that 5 minute thing lets me let them be who they are and be okay with it, right? Like to understand this is a cool thing, but it just is too much for me in my life right now. I mean, like I look at that and I think, oh, that's something I'm very thankful I've learned at this point. And I'm not saying I wish my mother would have taught me that, right? Like, of course I do, but we all do the best we can, right?
Yeah.
She didn't know because I hadn't written the books yet, right? but like as the child who struggled so much with stuff and my space was always a disaster, what I know now is that I needed to have less stuff. And that the fact that I needed to have less stuff is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Because that's what I needed to function. And maybe my friend could have a lot more stuff because they had the personality to only get out a little bit at a time and then put it back neatly and all that. I didn't have that personality, but that's okay. Right. And that's why I've enjoyed this children's book writing so much, is because I'm like, this is that communication piece, right? Like, don't we all want our kids to be their creative selves and who they are, but also not let it make their space be out of control? Like I want them, like I appreciate the little boy. I think you said it was a little boy, but a little boy who said that this paper was really important to him. Like, I think that's adorable. I think that's awesome. Like he has feelings, he has thoughts, he has logic around all of this stuff. And that is great. But also we don't want it to make your life difficult.
Well, I have one more question before we
Okay.
talk about some of the themes of the book. Again, this is something that came up yesterday, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to ask Dina about that tomorrow.
Ask me anything.
Okay. So this mom, she has a 6-year-old girl, and the girl does not want to get rid of anything in the room. So there is kind of like a play castle fort thing where you can kind of go in. And right now, the mom's like, yeah, the cats sleep there. Like she doesn't go in there. She doesn't really play in it, but she's like refusing to let it go.
Okay.
And I recommended talking to her about like, hey, if you were able to do something else in this space, like, would you want to have a reading nook? Like, would you want to have a place where you could have a tea party with your dolls or whatever? And kind of like looking at it in a different way, like, what could this space be? Like the possibility of it, and then proposing something instead of just like, I'm taking this away. And so the kids kind of dig their heels in and they say, no, you're not taking it away. Giving an alternative option that would be supporting how they want to be using that space and living in that space. And I'm just curious what you would recommend in that situation.
That's great. I think that's great. Like a dream session of what it is that you wish, what you would love for your room. Maybe it's something you see in a book that you're reading with your kid. Like this child has a reading nook or a section or something like that. And then it becomes, instead of you've got to get rid of the castle, it becomes, okay, let's one in, one out that. I mean, whether you use those words or not, but like, okay, well, to make space for us to be able to do this, this needs to go. The other thing I would say, and I say this because I get questions a lot, right? And so sometimes I feel like often think there's things that I know that maybe they haven't thought about yet. You know what I mean? Like I kind of know the question behind the question a lot of times, and it could be different for this person, but a lot of times that is a big piece of furniture, right? Like it's a big item. It's very frustrating, but I'm guessing there are some other things that could be decluttered in that room. I'm guessing that there's some trash, to deal with, that you could go through the process, because so many times that one thing that you're like, if we would just get that out of there, we would have so much more floor space. If we would just get that out of there. And it's been the topic of discussion, and it's been the power struggle for all this time. It's so easy to fixate on that one thing, and there's other things that could go. Mm-hmm. And so going through the decluttering process that lets the child experience, oh, this isn't going to be a power struggle. Oh, this is making my space more fun. Oh, I do like it being easier to do a 5 minute pickup here. I do like having space to play in the middle of the floor. Like that makes those hard decisions so much easier once you get to them. Right. And even if you never get to it, it's often this like, oh, the room is completely different. And now that doesn't drive me as
Yeah.
bananas anymore.
No,
Yeah.
that's excellent advice. And similar to you, I recommend starting with that low-hanging fruit. And so
Yes.
I feel
Yeah.
like that's so important. And I hadn't thought about this before. When you're doing it with kids, then they're not on their guard. They're able
Mhm.
to be like, oh, yeah, this is what I consider trash. Here you go. And
Yeah.
then you're able to kind of move from there. So I think that's amazing advice. I will share that with my friend
Oh, good.
right
Yeah.
after the call. And now I want to talk about the book.
Yeah.
So you've written several books, but
I
like,
have.
why a children's book now? Why did you decide to write it?
I just really wanted to.
I love it.
I mean, I mean, that's it right there.
Hmm.
Like, look how cute that is.
So
I mean,
cute.
I'm sorry. I feel like you're not supposed to say that about your own
It's like
babies,
I was
but
saying, it's like your kid. Of course, it's
yes,
fine.
I mean, like it's the cutest thing ever to me. No, I because of what we're talking about, right? Like it is it is a point of tension between parents and children.
Yeah.
It is a point of tension between adults and their parents. I mean, like I get the stories from women who have broken relationships with their parents and their mother specifically over the inability to communicate on this issue. And and I'm very thankful that I'm able to share. I'm very thankful that I'm able to help people understand this in a way that is helpful to them and they can move from there. But my goal for this book is that it bridges that communication gap between the person who is naturally organized or just the mom, right? I was not a naturally organized mom, but I was the mom and I was trying to get these concepts through to my kid. Even for the mom who isn't like me and doesn't have a mess that her kids are looking at going, why do you care about mine when, the way our house was back then. But even for the moms that aren't in that situation, even for the mom who is naturally organized, I know the missing piece in the communication that would have been helpful for me
Right.
all along, which is if I try to have more stuff
Hmm.
than can fit functionally in my space, there's no hope of my space ever being under control. And
Yeah.
I can't enjoy it. So even just because I love something doesn't mean it can come into my house. I have to love it enough to give it a space, which might mean something else has to leave.
Hmm.
So that is what this is about. It's the container concept and it's only 750 words. So I mean, it's not the whole 5-step process. It's
Right.
not clutter threshold. It's not all the things that I talk about, but it's just this one concept of you can love something and you can think it's amazing, but there comes a point where if you keep on bringing things in
Hmm.
because they delight you, it goes from the feeling in your chest of the like tickle and the giggle and it changes to like that feeling. It's that moment when you're like, I love these things, but now I'm overwhelmed. And the answer to that is to let go of the ones that are not your absolute favorites. So
Yeah. And I love how like kind of there's certain parts of like Winnie the Walrus's, emotional landscape. Like there's the room and she loves certain things about her room. And that's, I think kids, especially allowing them to have ownership at various ages over what is in their room and why, what they love and why. And then, like you said, you have the kind of the feeling of the tickle and a giggle where it's like, ooh, pillows. Like, ooh, I love these for so many reasons. And then the blessing of like that feeling then becomes the burden of, oh, I can't get comfortable. I can't read. I can't sleep. And I feel like this book is such a great tool Is there any other recommendations, I guess, besides reading this book, which people should, but we, if a child loves a certain type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then the grandparents and all the relatives keep buying the thing too.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a squishmallow or whatever those things are
Which is
called.
exactly what happens, right?
Yeah.
Like this
This
is what
is what
happens in the
happens.
book. This is what happens in real life. Yeah.
And it happens to adults too. Like
Oh,
I've heard, like if you
absolutely.
say like, "Oh, I love, cat things," and then you keep buying you cat everything for like your entire life until you're
Mm-hmm.
like, "No, actually, that's too many."
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
guess, how to talk about with kids to say, okay, it's great that you love Squishmallows and you want to ask for that for your birthday. Where is this new one going to go? Is it going to go on your bed? Is it going to go here in the basket where we keep the stuffies? Like, if a parent is like, okay, I have my kid's birthdays coming up, or like Christmas, or some sort of gift giving holiday, or they're trying to rein in a very generous, quote unquote, grandparent that
Yeah.
is like, oh, you like Squishmallows? I'm going to just get them every time I come. How can we have that conversation like before the stuff comes in?
Yeah.
Where is that going to go? And
Yeah.
can we still do the things we want to do in our room if we get another Squishmallow? Like, how can we have that
Yeah.
conversation on the front end?
So I think the thing to do first is to deal with the things that you've already got, right?
Mhm.
Like go ahead through the decluttering process. Start with those non-emotional things first to kind of see some progress and go, oh, okay, this is not that hard. And then if this is an item that's important, give it a place of honor. So I had a video that came out last week. I think it was last Thursday, and I don't know when this is coming out, but it would have come out early February on
Mhm.
my YouTube channel. And where I basically went through what I did with my daughter. And that was, I said, okay, she had stuffed animals everywhere, like just covering every surface, right? So we said, all right, this shelf is going to be your stuffed animal shelf. And it was actually a 3 shelf unit. And I said, okay, so that's fun, right? Like giving them, say, this is the place, this is the special place for that. This is the bookshelf. This is the whatever, right? For stuffed animals, it could be one of those hammocks, or it could be, like there's all kinds of great stuffed animal storage ideas out there. But the way you actually make that work is to say, all right, let's put our favorite ones in there first. So I did this with my daughter. I said, pick out your favorite stuffed animals, put them on there. That is fun. Like that's a fun process to be like, oh, this is my favorite. He's going to go right in the middle. Okay. All right. Oh, this one. Yeah. And then as you're going, you just start casually mentioning that, once the shelf since this is the space that we have for stuffed animals, once the space is full, then the ones that don't fit, we'll donate those to some other children that don't have stuffed animals, but let's go ahead and put our favorite ones on there first. And so we go through that process, and it is shockingly amazing how many times the kids are willing to get rid of stuff, right? But the beauty is that even once it's full and they say, oh no, but this is my favorite, my answer always gets to be, of course. Of course. Yeah, absolutely. You can keep that. Which one are you willing to get rid of so that you can keep this one? So, and then if they go, well, I'm not willing to get rid of any. Oh man, or maybe it's, oh, well, no, I have to keep them all. I need another shelf. Okay. Well, then are you willing to get rid of your Legos? Are you really Lego? I know it's not supposed to be Legos. People are really weird about that. But anyway, well, they're correct. I'm not. But the like go, that kind of a thing where you're like, my answer gets to always be yes, but the container makes that decision, right?
Yeah.
Once I have done that, then the conversations about the new stuff coming in has to have a space. Now it makes sense. When the stuffed animals are everywhere all over the floor, and that conversation is had about, oh, we don't have any more room. It's like, what are you talking about? I mean, we can keep piling them, like there's still this 8-foot ceiling. So what are you talking about? Like, that's how the brain,
Yeah.
my brain works, and a lot of children. But, but so that first step is to go ahead and declutter for what you have now. And then as things come in, it's okay, well, absolutely, they deserve space. So what are you going to get rid of to make the space for that? And here's where it's hard, is sometimes the new thing that came in is not the thing that they're going to choose.
Right.
And that was hard, especially when I had paid money for something or I had picked it out and I had been sure they were going to love it. And then they didn't love it as much as the other stuff. And no, I'll get rid of that one. And that's where, as a mom, I had to bite my tongue and say, I am not going to put this pressure on them. Like, I want them to feel free to let anything go anytime, any physical stuff that they could let it go, you know? So that also, when grandma asks, oh, where's their thing? Oh, there wasn't enough room. And so she chose to let that one go. That can be hard. And I'm not saying it's easy. And I'm not saying that it's not going to cause issues or whatever. But over time, then they'll learn that you meant what you said,
Yeah.
you know. But also when my mother-in-law did not understand my messiness. My mom has always been very supportive and trying to be helpful. My mother-in-law did not understand. We ended up being very, very close before she died. But for her, when I was like, oh, I can't, she's like, but you already have piles, like what are you talking about? Like, how are you, when my space was such a mess when my kids were little bitty, like it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense, period. It didn't make any sense to her for me to, say, oh, no more stuff. Because it was like, you don't care about that. You just throw it wherever, so it took time over time. And then having those conversations are great, but I do think it's really important to go ahead and declutter what you have now.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And I'm actually just reminded me, I'm reading Tyler Moore, Tidy Dad's book,
Okay.
Tidy Up Your Life. Anyway, it's interesting from a male perspective, since a
Okay.
lot of like organizing books are from female perspective. Anyway, he said that he had there were dolls that were given by his mother to his girls, and because they didn't have the space, they live in an apartment in Brooklyn or something.
Mhm.
She would bring them with her in the carry-on. And then it was like she was traveling. This wouldn't work for everything, but if she was like traveling with the
Yep.
dolls, and then not only was grandma visiting, but the toys were visiting too. Or alternatively, if your loved one lives locally, then that's just the doll that lives at grandma's house. And when you visit grandma, you can see
Yeah.
the doll. And so there's other ways around it where
I
you can have
love that. That's a great idea.
conversations and
Yeah.
say like, we don't have room for it, but I know that you would
Yeah.
love to gift this. Is it possible to have it at your house? Is it possible that when you
Yeah.
visit, you could have a little space for this little thing?
Yeah.
And there's other ways to think about it.
Well, and having the decluttering down to the container, having the actual language about that's more, when they're like, oh, but there's floor space right here. Why couldn't they put it there? Well, that's more than they can handle because then they can't get it cleaned up in the amount of time, in a 5-minute pickup. So we were trying to keep it where they can actually handle what they have. Like having those outside of this is a good item or a bad item, like conversations and wording that doesn't come down to placing value or lack of value on this item that they're trying to give your kid, right? Instead, it's more of it's a space issue. It's a what can we handle? What can we keep under control? Goes I say it goes a long way because it does. It goes a long way in that relationship. But I also never want to say, oh, and then they'll always understand because they don't. I mean, like every relationship has its own layers and issues, to work through. But the facts are the facts.
Yeah. And using that capacity language, people can't really argue with that. If you're
Mhm.
saying, my kid gets overwhelmed if they take more than 5 minutes to clean
Yeah.
something up and they won't do it, or they'll complain, or they
Yeah.
just are they're shutting down. People aren't going to argue with that. Oh, okay,
I
well,
mean,
that's what they
some
can handle.
will,
Well,
but
some will. Most
but
people
they
won't.
shouldn't. I think that's the point is you can be confident on your end that this is not an arguable thing. This is fact. It is fact. And okay, yeah, like whether they argue or not, but you're right. Most people are going to understand. That's what I always say when people are like, how do I get my mother keep her from giving me stuff? I'm like, you put it on yourself. Don't make it a why do you give me this stuff? You shouldn't give me this, right? Instead, it's I can't handle it. I can't handle it. Like they may try, but they can't. Like you said, they can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the book is so good. And like you said, it's It's short, but it really is very impactful. And it's about opening up this communication.
Mhm.
And one of the things I just want to close on is that you mentioned this as far as like a place of honor and like kind of going through the stuffy example. If you as a parent show a lot of interest in like, oh, that's right, you do love Mr. Monkey. Let's put him right front and center. And oh, I remember when grandma got this for you for Christmas. Let's, and you're kind of like showing your child that you are also enthusiastic about the things that they care about and are special to them. Like that is quality time well spent with
Yes.
your child. And so one of the things I love in the book is like the grandma is like has this great role as far as kind of teaching Winnie and then also kind of supporting her and loving what she loves and caring about her, but then also the things that she cares about. And I think like that's an important piece here too. It's not that we're just like this militant drill sergeant and we're going in and saying, okay, today we're cleaning up the room because I can't take it anymore. And so we're going to start with this. It's more like, let's talk about your favorite stuff. It's just such a different way of approaching the conversation and having it come from this joy-filled, like curious space. Tell me more about why this is important to you. Oh, that's cool. Like you said, where's the first place you would look for it? And having it come from that curiosity, joy-filled place rather than I'm sick of the mess and we're going to do something about it. So I just love how that really comes through in the book as well.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. And now tell us where everyone can get it. And I didn't ask this before, the ideal age range for the book and anything else you want to tell us about it.
It's 4 to 8. So it is a book for you to read with your child. Can I show you a couple things from it? Sorry.
Please. And that means
I
anyone
just
listening, you got to watch YouTube to be able to see it,
Oh
friends.
yeah. No, okay. So Sarah Jennings is the artist, is the illustrator, and she just did such a good job of what I wanted. First of all, it was really important for it to be an interesting story, like be a fun character, interesting story. But my memory of books that I loved were things where I could just look and look and look and look, right? Like, and there's just interesting things to look at. So it's a story you'll read with your child, but my hope and goal, and this is all due to the illustrator, right, is that there's lots of interesting, bright, fun things to just examine, and that you notice, like the birds are making faces at the stuff and things like that. If you just go to aslobcomesclean.com/Winnie, WINNIE, then that will like have links to all the retailers, but you can also just go straight to wherever you like to buy books. And just anytime you put in my name, just put the K in there, Dana K. White. Otherwise, it's not me that you'll find. But if you put in Dana K. White, you'll find me really easily. So,
Yeah. And you can enjoy it and enjoy it and enjoy it again. And then when you're ready to pass it along, it's a great thing too, because it's a conversation that, again, yeah, we have over and over and over again with our children. And it was just such a joy reading again. Like you said, I loved the colors and just like, it's almost like you could have like a Where's Waldo edition where you have like the different things to look for. So congratulations again on the book.
thank
And
you.
thank you for all your guidance and advice on all things decluttering with kids today. It was really great.
This was fun. Thank you.
Hey, Mama, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, could you please share this episode with another mom who is feeling overwhelmed? Also, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a 5-star written review wherever you listen to your podcast. Finally, if you would like more support, come on over to our free Facebook group, tinyurl.com/moms overcoming overwhelm. Can't wait to connect with you soon.